Okay,
No.
now we're good. Good evening and welcome to Sleda Independent School District's meeting of the Board of Trustees. We invite you to share your comments with the board during the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment sign-up cards show the rules for participating legally. The board may listen but may not enter into a discussion on the issue raised. This meeting of the Board of Trustees is called to order at 6 p.m. We have a quorum with Charlie Bustillos, Soltero Ramirez, Richard Cuder, Mike Rosales, Connie Woodruff, and myself, Cruz Ochoa. Dr. De La Torre and Secretary Lucero are unable to attend this meeting and are excused. Trustee Cuder, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. President Ochoa, there is no public comment for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cuder. We will now begin the workshop. Dr. Kennedy, do you have a presentation for us this evening?
Yes, Mr. Ochoa, good evening. President Ochoa and members of the board, about 5 years ago, we entered into a partnership with the Young Women's Network. And tonight, Principal Villalobos is here to share with us an update of the incredible things that have happened since we opened up the school. And I believe she's on her way up. She will share with us what's been happening with the 8th Young Women's Leadership Academy.
Good evening. My name is Melinda Villalobos. I'm the proud principal of the first all-girl public school in West Texas, the Young Women's Leadership Academy. As Dr. Kennedy opened up with, we joined into the sisterhood and into our MOU with the Young Women's Preparatory Network in July of 2015. At the time, we were the 8th sister school to join the network. We have since added another sister school in Midland that opened this school year. Our core values and the pillars of what we believe and all the work that we do at our school that filter through are centered around college and career readiness, health and wellness, and responsible leadership. In addition to that, the partnership yielded us $1 million of enhancement funds that would allow us to typically do things with students that it just being in a school district alone and on a general budget, we would never be able to do. One of those fund pieces that helps our school is to have a college-bound advisor at our campus. We had our college-bound advisor join us last school year at our campus, and she is responsible for working with all students and all families at our school to help create and support that college and career readiness, college-going culture at the campus. To date, she has taken last year our freshman class, who is our sophomore class this year, first graduating class, on a college road trip. And we are averaging anywhere between 25 and about 32 college visits between their 6th grade and 12th grade school year at our campus. In addition to that, you'll see on the screen what our current enrollment looks like. Our 10th graders are graduating in 2 years, the class of 2022. And if you'll work all the way down to the 6th grade group that just entered this year, graduating in the year 2026, total membership at this time is 387 students. This is a picture of, if you want to think about maybe this building looks familiar, it just has a new logo on the front of the building. When we first opened our school, we started out at the Ranchland Hills property, which was Ranchland Hills Middle School. And this past summer in July, we moved to our current location and permanent location at 8040 Yermo Land. This was the old Bel Air Middle School, and prior to that, it was the Hillcrest Middle School campus. So this is the renewed look at the beginning at the front of our school. These are a few images of just some spaces in our campus. You see the library. You will see the commons area where you see the college flags hanging down. Renovated and brand new high school science lab. So that's where our girls have their high school science classes. You'll see the gym floor, and the backboard piece and the padding of our beautiful gym. And then the cafeteria is the very last photo that you'll see on the bottom right. Our focus around being a college preparatory STEAM academy, so we focus on science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. We believe that our girls are already living in a global society, and by the time they're graduating from college, they will need to have more than one language under their belt. And so at our campus, we have a big focus on biliteracy, and so we have American Sign Language, Chinese, and Spanish as the coursework that our girls take as far as language is concerned. All of our core content classes are pre-AP and AP, so starting in 6th grade, our English, Math, Science, and Social Studies, all of our students are participating in taking pre-advanced placement courses. By the time they're transitioning into their sophomore year in high school, they are already moving into the AP coursework. Last year, we had 2 of our first AP exams administered. Our Spanish 4 AP exam, where we are happy to present that we have 100% of our girls scoring a qualifying score of a 3, 4, or a 5. In addition to that, we did not teach the AP World Human Geography course, but we had girls that said, we want to challenge this class. We're going to create a study group like what we do in college. And from that cohort that never had an ounce of instruction but challenged the exam, we had 25% of those girls make a qualifying score of a 3, 4, or a 5. In addition to that, we have, under the large umbrella of House Bill 5, we have the different endorsements of arts and humanities, multidisciplinary, and STEM. Under the STEM umbrella, we have a focus of biomedical, computer science, and engineering. Some of our co-curricular activities that support the academics that we do in our school every day, and you'll see a parallel here between the middle school and high school: academic UIL, fine arts UIL, science fair, spelling bee, STEM for the middle school, which is the VEX IQ robotics, and Team Quest. Moving over to high school, Acadec, HiQ, National History Day, Science Fair, Speech and Debate, and STEM, which is at that point the VEX EDR robotics. Our extracurricular has really started to align, I think, beautifully between our middle school and high school. These are a direct parallel, so when students are eligible to participate in athletics, they can smoothly transition from middle school athletics to high school athletics. So you'll see the parallel between basketball, cheerleading, cross country, swimming, track and field, and volleyball. This next slide changes about every 12 weeks at our school, but we have the luxury in our schedule to create an opportunity for girls to have in-school club activity on Fridays. And so this is a sampling of this next rotation of what our teachers have graciously stepped forward and said, we will sponsor and entertain students in these particular clubs. And as I said, this changes about every 12 weeks, so girls move into different rotations of different clubs. We tried to make sure that none of these were aligned to any sort of curriculum standards. We want girls to have the opportunity to have a vast array of opportunities, which we call enrichment and exposure, opposed to all the hardcore academics that they're studying every single day, week in and week out. Just some accolades to share. We are a TEA honor roll school, and that is a selection process. We are an A-rated school according to TEA. We received 7 out of 7 distinctions. We've had 67 students advance to District Science Fair, 51 advance to Sun Country Science Fair, 18 advance to State Science Fair. Our middle school students went to World's Robotics Competition last year, and we had National History Day state qualifiers last year as well that competed in Austin. In addition to that, District UIL Academic Champions, UIL Orchestra Sweepstakes, All-Region Orchestra, 35 students, Orchestra Solo and Ensemble, First Division rating, approximately 80 students in that grouping. TCAL High School Cross Country State Champions, that just happened about 4 weeks ago. And we are under review to be a National Avid Demonstration School. Our final visit takes place on December the 17th. From our mock visit about 2.5 weeks ago, the feedback was, just put more color on the walls. The stuff you have going on in the classroom is exactly where it needs to be. And usually that's the reverse of what you would normally hear in some feedback. And so the curriculum, the alignment, the rigor, the systems are strong. This is just about putting more color on the walls, which I think is easy to take care of. In addition to that, I know you received a packet in a folder. There are 3 slides that I'd like to share with you. This is a little bit different than what's in your folder. In your folder, there's more depth data and information that we could certainly dive into at a later time. But we wanted to share a little bit of information with you with relationship to how are we performing here in Ysleta in comparison to our other sister schools that have been well established. And so the first chart that we're looking at is the approaches chart, the graph here. And so if you just look across the board from Austin, the Grand Prairie School, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Lubbock, San Antonio, and Ysleta, we are in that maroon red color to the right-hand side. At this point, we are in our 4th year, so this is based on 3 years' worth of data. And I think you can see comparatively, we are holding our own with exactly what the standard and expectation is across not only our district, but the network. The next graph is with relationship to meets, and so we know we want all students at definitely the meets portion, but most importantly at the masters. And I think comparatively, again, you'll just see across the board when you look at the reading, math, writing, science, and social studies, we're right in the race with our sister schools. And then the master's performance, which is the performance that really is indicative over time of the college readiness component. With just the 3 years of data underneath our belt, and this includes our Algebra 1 and our end-of-course English 1 coursework, you will see as well hanging tight across the board in these areas. The next piece we are going to share with you is our promotional video for this school year that we're using at recruitment. It's something completely different. It is certainly jazzy and lots of fun. So if you would just take about a minute and a half maybe to watch this. Hector, I think you're up.
Hello out there. Let me ask you a question. What are you searching for? Every day you're online, you're scrolling, but what are you searching for? Is it motivation? Because she's ready to change the world. Is it innovation? Because she's exploring the careers of tomorrow. Thinking how to make this world a better place? Because she's already leading the way. Social media tells us to be authentic this and dream big that, but when it's time for action, transformers are getting it done. We're the ones making a difference. We're the game changers, explorers, engineers, musicians, leaders. At the Young Women's Leadership Academy, we know who we are, what we're made of, and where we want to go. We are tomorrow's inspiration. We are transformers.
Thanks to our brave and bold PR department that brought the idea forward for this particular promotion video, and we said, let's do it. So this was a full day's worth of work, I know, just to get a minute's worth of video put out. But that's what's happening at the Young Women's Leadership Academy. Any questions?
Sure. I just had a couple of questions. Noticing your high school enrollment, obviously it's a big difference between that and your middle school. Mm-hmm. Does that align with the other 8 schools as far as what their normal enrollment is? And is there any plans to try to grow it, or are we satisfied with that number?
That's what keeps me up at night.
I know.
I think recruitment and retention. So it is very indicative of what happens across our sister schools. I can remember 5 years ago gasping and saying, how in the world? Like, what do you mean you're only graduating 22 students in your graduating class? Most of our sister schools only recruit 75 students in that 6th grade year coming in. And the biggest attrition that takes place is at the 8th grade year, 8th grade going to 9th grade, because girls are naturally attracted to traditional. We typically only know traditional, where most of us have gone to school. And so I think the hard part and maybe the opportunity right now is around, we still have 2 years to be built out completely. And sometimes I talk about this as walking in the dark. So you just keep walking, right? You're walking in the dark and you just keep walking, but you know where you're headed, you know where you're going. And when you think about taking teenagers and their parents on a 6 or 7 year journey through this process of walking in the dark, because although it's built out on paper, nobody's lived it yet. It's hard to really sell something that you don't have data on in your own community. And so these are conversations, I jokingly say keep me up at night, but they're truly the things that we are problem solving and saying, how do we tackle this? What do we do differently in the 8th grade? Part of the piece of that, I would say, for the 8th grade is about remarketing ourselves. 8th grade is when all of our traditional high schools start to go out to those middle schools and really recruit students with relationship to their programs, their magnets, their House Bill 5 opportunities. And so in-house, what we are doing is in January, we are doing our academic showcase. And although our girls live this dream every single day, sometimes when it's right under your nose, you don't even see it. And so really pulling them back through and showcasing all the other opportunities that we do have at our school. When you're about 400 students, you can only offer programs that can suit about 400 students. It's very different than if you're a super big comprehensive high school of about 2,500 students, where programs look very, very different. So that's what we're working on.
To follow up with that, do you all also recruit the same way to the other middle schools? Because you were saying that the way that high schools sell themselves to middle schools, you were talking about how you sell yourselves to your own girls to try to keep them, of course, but do you also do that opportunity to go to the other middle schools?
So we don't recruit from middle schools. We recruit starting in 5th grade coming to 6th grade. And 6th grade possibly going to 7th. But because of our programming, if you get too far in past 7th grade, the window of opportunity and the systems and the structures that are in place become very, very difficult to jump in midstream. Not impossible, but a very, very special child that can jump in and just dive right in without those 2 years of a strong systematic approach of what we do with our curriculum, especially with all of the pre-AP and the alignment of what we do. We have the beautiful dream of aligning 6 through 12, every one of our academic programs. And so that handing off is very, very special, and it's very deliberate with what we do. So we have just been recruiting citywide. There is a discussion on the table right now about going to our elementary campuses. And if we were to recruit our elementary campuses, what would that attraction be? Because we are a school that accepts girls from across the entire city, we have about 40% of our girls that are out of district transfers. And so they come in joining us either in the 6th grade or into the 7th grade. But that number gets smaller and smaller as we move up because of the difficulty of transitioning in. So even attracting more students, just even from our current enrollment here in East Sleda, starts super early. I chuckle when I say this. We had a dad call the other day. His daughter just entered pre-K. He heard about our recruitment and said, what do I need to do to get her on the list so when she's in 5th grade, we can be at one of your meetings for the 6th grade. So the word is out there. I think it's about just keeping your eye on the prize. And recruitment is always a changing game. I would say from where we started 5 years ago and where we are today, it looks completely different. The access that we have to students across the entire city looks very different too, with relationships to addresses and phone numbers. So a lot of mass media, social media, the help with PR has been tremendous in doing that because that's their skill set. We do school and they do advertising. Thank you.
I have a question. Could you put that slide up where it shows the enrollment, please?
Certainly.
Okay. Grade 10, you have 45. And then like in 8th grade, you have 99. So it keeps kind of declining. Do you know why?
So when we recruit, we typically recruit in the 6th grade. Our number aim is 125 students because we know between the ending of 5th grade coming into 6th grade, we do lose some students. Sometimes they get cold feet, they move, there's change of plan. Because we're not a community school, this is a huge commitment for parents for 7 years to provide transportation, whether it be from far west side, far east side, far northeast. And I will tell you, every student that leaves our campus, I have a personal interview, or they're thinking about leaving, I have a personal interview with the parents and the student. All the stories are very, very, very different. Sometimes that gap between 8th grade and 9th grade is also around programs. And so students have a big focus perhaps in the medical field and want to go to a medical magnet school as well. Being all girl, nursing comes up a lot. Being a doctor comes up a lot in our school. And those are programs there's just no way we could replicate at our campus. So we tend to aim high so we can settle somewhere around that 70 mark as we move into high school.
Because like in eighth grade, it's almost 99 students. But in 10th grade, you lost almost 50% of them.
So we didn't start out with 100 students when this group was, so this 10th grade group was the 7th grade group that we recruited.
So what was the 10th grade group like?
10th grade group was sitting, I think, at 97 students. And
So
some,
that's about 45% then.
yes,
I mean, 50%.
yes, sir.
Okay. So what's the main, I mean, I'm still trying to grasp, is it because of maturity or is it something happening at that level that they're...
8th to 9th grade, and this is what we hear from our sister schools, when you have as many options as students have today of where they can go to school, this is a big choice for a lot of families. Sometimes it's about traditional and where did my family go? So my family is from the XYZ learning community, and we've all graduated from this high school. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure around that and keeping the legacy and following through. Sometimes it's about magnet programs. Sometimes it is my parents cannot drive me anymore from the west side to the east side every day. They can't drive me from Horizon to the school anymore. There's just varied life circumstances, and we keep the data on this as we have attrition that takes place so that we can really have a good sense. We have some military students as well that end up moving. They might be with us a few years and then they're deployed or parents are moved to another location.
Well, I'm just concerned about the diminishing returns as we go up into 11th and 12th grade. And if this trend continues, it's kind of hard to understand why there's so many, 50% are just leaving the school.
I could certainly share that anecdotal data of the interviews, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, Ms. Villalobos, thank you so much for doing this. I know you and I sat out at a robotics event, and I think we sat for a couple, maybe an hour or two, talking about this, and I really appreciate this. And I do understand. I know that number's low right now, but I did witness the parents that were there and believe in the program that you have built, and I think it's just a matter of, like you said, a matter of time and continuing on the process. So keep up the great work and good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I just wanted to say, the numbers are interesting. I understand Mr. Ochoa's concern, but the numbers are interesting. But I think that, we're still new at this and still trying to figure out what was going to happen. And while we could have looked at the historical data from the other members of the network, each community is unique in its own way. And so I'm pleasantly surprised, quite honestly, with the numbers, with the retention so far. And the big reason is that, like you said, there's so many other options, so many other opportunities out there that didn't exist before, and I'm just, wondering about when that vision gets expanded.
Right.
When that vision gets expanded, what are the other opportunities out there? I mean, is there perhaps healthcare opportunities? Is there dual credit opportunities? What are the other things that keeps students interested in wanting to stay at a particular school? So, like I said, I would like a higher number, but I understand. And again, when we had the discussions 5 years ago, that was one of the big things is what's going to happen,
right,
where we're going to be at. So congratulations. And by the way, I have yet to not run into one of your students at an event in our district, no matter whether it's fine arts or sports or whatever, and they're always studying. And I always interrupt them. I introduce myself to the parents and interrupt the student and ask them what they're doing and ask them what they like or dislike. And they love the school, they love the sisterhood, they like the extra activities. Right. They really, really, really enjoy that. They don't like the homework, but that's just the nature of the beast. But
I know.
Anyways, I keep hearing the same consistent message. And so I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Mrs. Leeper, do you have a presentation for us this evening?
Yes, President Ochoa. Mr. Jeff Robert, our financial advisor with Hilltop Securities, is here with a presentation on the bond parameters order and our financial capacity.
Thank you, Ms. Sleeper. Board President Ochoa, members of the board, Jeff Robert with Hilltop Securities. As Ms. Sleeper said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the capacity of the district, very similar to what we had shared with the committee prior to the election, and obviously congratulations on the recent passage of the election. And then talk about the first issuance from that authorization and the parameters associated with that. And if you have questions as I'm going along, please feel free to interrupt me, and I'll do the best I can to answer. My partner that's here in El Paso, Maria Urbina, her sister is graduating from college in Michigan, so she is in Michigan at her graduation, and apologizes for not being able to make it. Talk a little bit about, the interest rate market, which is extremely favorable right now for the issuance of high-grade, tax-exempt bond issues. With the district's underlying AA ratings combined with the permanent school fund guarantee, whenever we do decide to sell bonds on behalf of the district, you're going to achieve the lowest rates available in the market. And so I like to kind of show you just an overall idea of where long-term interest rates, tax-exempt interest rates have been and where they are currently. So on this graph here, this is the bond buyer index. It's a 20-year bond index or bond rate index. And so the white background shows what that index has done on a weekly basis going all the way back to the early 80s. And if you go over to the far right at the bottom, you can see that we're at really a historical low. We're not at the absolute lowest point. We actually got there in October, but we're very close to it. So that blue graph there shows what that index has done just over the last year. And this last week, it was at a 2.77 on a 20-year rate. So extremely, extremely favorable rates, hopefully for that first issuance. Kind of a summary of the plan right now. Initially, I believe we had communicated a capacity of $393 million to the committee. The election was for $425 because we did explain to the committee that, if we get a little bit more growth than what we're projecting, if something changes in state funding, you certainly might have the ability to issue the remainder, difference between that $425 and $393 at some point in the future. So I know the committee had recommended the $425. In column 2 up there, we're in talking with Ms. Leeper and the administration, with rates as favorable as they are, we'd like to issue as much as we can out of the authorization right now to hopefully take advantage of those low rates. So in column 2, we're assuming that we'd go out with $275 million to begin with, using rates plus 0.25% to hopefully be conservative. In column 3, about 18 months later, around the summer of 21, we'd come back with 120. That equals 395. Obviously, the election is for 425. If we have the ability to issue more in that second tranche, we certainly will. But right now, with the numbers we're using in the model, 395 is the number with the 275, the first one, the 120 on the second one. The state funding that's going to be produced as a result of these two issues is projected to be about $170 million to help offset the impact on the district and its taxpayers. The maximum rate, since we are talking capacity, 50 cents is that limit. Currently, you're at 28.5, so that would be the 21.5 cent tax rate increase. And then below, the blue line shows what the tax rate will look like just after this first issue in 2021. If we do the 120, you can see what it would look like after that. And the initial plan is to go up on the tax rate in 2 equal increments. So next year, we'd go from 28.5 to 39.25 cents. And then the following year, the plan would be to go up to 50 cents if needed in order to issue as much of the remaining authority or the entire remaining authority that the district has left. So this kind of summarizes what we're projecting the tax rate to look like based upon our assumptions going forward after the first issue and then after the second as well. I think many of you are comfortable or familiar with, the parameter process. What we'd be asking the board to do is to consider a parameter order, which would give final pricing authority to Dr. De La Torre or Ms. Leeper in the event that the parameters are met. You can see the different parameters on a new money sale, maximum principal amount, maximum interest rate, final maturity date, and expiration of delegated authority. And once again, the pricing officers could only approve if the parameters are met. Reason we do this is just to give us hopefully flexibility. We do kind of have the first week in January picked out right now is the time we'd like to consider pricing the first issuance. If for whatever reason there's something going on in the markets that it's not favorable to price, we can certainly pull back and hopefully wait for a better day to do so. The parameters that the district's bond counsel, Norton Rose Fulbright, has for the order for, I believe, Wednesday's meeting, is that right? Wednesday's meeting are included here. Superintendent, once again, or chief financial officer, the maximum principal amount of $275 million, the maximum true interest cost of 4.5. I think it'll be far less than that. And the final maturity date of 2052, and the expiration of the parameter authority 180 days. So if for whatever reason parameters are not met during that span, or the issue is not sold, then we would come back to the board for the approval of a subsequent parameter order. In consultation and collaboration with district administration, we've selected the following underwriters with the liabilities shown: Senior Manager Piper Jaffrey, Co-Manager Citigroup, Co-Manager D.A. Davidson, RBC Ramirez and Company, and Raymond James. And then lastly, we've put together a schedule of events that's very preliminary. Some of these dates have already changed with regard to when we have rating calls and meetings set up right now, but as you can see in the highlighted green section there in January, right now we're looking at the potential for selling that first week that the district administration staff are back from the holiday break. I know I flew through that fairly quickly. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Could you go back to that slide on column 2 and column 3 and just explain it again?
Yes, sir.
The 275 and the 120?
Yes, sir. What we wanted to do, when we initially ran the capacity, we were assuming 2 equal issuances, and I think it was about $196,500,000 apiece. And then we kind of talked about, with interest rates as favorable as they are, let's try to issue as much as we can and still stay within the tax rate constraints. And really the constraint is that we didn't want to go up from 28.5 cents to 50 cents immediately. It was to go up, halfway the first year and then the halfway the second year. So the most that we feel comfortable that we can issue and not go over that 39.25, which is the midway point between 28.5 and 50, is the $275 million. And then, once again, using our growth assumptions on tax base, average daily attendance, as well as interest rate assumptions, we feel like we'll be able to do at least the $120 million in the summer of 2021. And something to remember here, and a very good question is, why wouldn't we issue even more than the 275? And part of that is that the EDA funding that's shown in column 4, that $170 million, that's not going to start coming into the district until 2022. So really these first 2 years, we're kind of on our own in terms of only our local tax levy is going to be supporting the debt payment. So even though rates are extremely favorable, we'd love to issue even more, we really can't because we're not going to have the benefit of that state funding until 2022 with the way that program works.
And that projected of 3.70, that's projected, right?
That's using some cushion, since we're a little over a year from that 2021, that's a 0.5% cushion. So my hope is that if rates are at similar levels to what we see right now, that instead of 120, we can hopefully approach issuing the remainder of the authorization that's left over. I mean, right now, the difference between the 425 and the 395 is there's $30 million out there. If rates are very favorable, or if we get a little more tax-based growth than what we're assuming, then we might be able to issue some or all of that remaining $30 million at that time.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I've got a couple of questions. You indicated here that the maximum true interest cost would be 4.5, and then you elaborated that it could be lower.
Yeah,
Can you explain the
I
point
feel
there?
we always try to be somewhat conservative, and the reason being is that if we put an extremely low interest rate in there, we might not be able to do the issuance at all. And in this case, whenever we do these parameter issuances, it's not something that we just sell the bonds and then tell Dr. De La Torre and Ms. Leeper that, here it is. I mean, they're involved in the entire process. And so what would happen is the day before pricing, I would let them know, here's what I think it's going to look like on the interest rate. And let's say it's 50 basis points higher than what it is currently right now. And then I'll let them make that decision as to, let's go ahead and move forward or let's not, rather than saying, let's go ahead and assume 3.25 because that's where the market is right now. And then if rates go up a little bit, well, then we wouldn't even have the opportunity to make a decision on whether or not to price. So we try to be conservative in the rate that we put in there.
But currently, the rates are 2.77, aren't they?
Well, that's the 20-year rate. That's the 20-year rate. Yes,
Okay,
sir. So we're going a little bit
based on 30.
further. So I would expect on this that you'll probably be somewhere between 3.25 to 3.5 would be my guesstimate on where the rate is. And I, like I said, the reason for putting that higher rate in the parameters just to give flexibility, just in the event that for whatever reason rates start to increase, then we can make the determination of, do we want to go ahead and issue because we're fearful that those rates will not come back down, or do we not want to issue even though it's within the parameter? So it's just to give the staff and the administration the ability to make that call, and I think they do so in consultation with the board members if it's something that's markedly different than the interest rates that I'm showing you here.
Well, that brings up another point, and I guess this question is referred, or I guess I have to ask Ms. Leeper, how in the process, what was the process in the selection of Hilltop as opposed to many other companies in the state of Texas that are involved in this kind of business?
So if you're referring to Hilltop as our financial advisor, that was a competitive solicitation awarded many months ago, back in fact, before we did that. So that's not part of this process. When we're talking about the underwriters, that's generally based on what their performance is with other similar municipalities or school districts throughout the state, and the assumption of liability on their parts, their capitalization, and what they're able to fund and deliver.
I guess I guess what I'm driving towards is the fact that I don't see any minority other than Ramirez. I've never met any of these gentlemen, but is there? I guess what we're saying, there's no minority qualified companies in the state of Texas as far as the bond, what do they call it, the bond?
Underwriters?
Underwriters?
Well, these are the ones that have been in contact with the district and expressed an interest in doing business with us. Now, I'm sure there may be others out there, but these are the ones that have been in contact with us and have performed well either in the past or currently.
I'm sorry, can I, well, Mr. Rosales, if you allow me. So you said have performed well either in the past or currently. If they've not had the opportunity to conduct business with the district, then how does one get on that list and create that opportunity for themselves and the company?
We reviewed those who have been in contact with the district, reached out to us and expressed an interest in underwriting, and then we reviewed the sales throughout the state with the various underwritings and those rankings, and that's how this was determined. If there's a particular underwriter you're interested in, then all the board needs to do is tell us that you would like for us to work with them, and we'll certainly work with the financial advisor.
My point is not so much one particular individual. I'm looking more towards an open approach. So if you were to tell me, I don't have any preference. All I'm asking, are we being fair with the competition? And I go back, this gentleman was the financial advisor for the 15th bond.
Yes, sir.
And I guess, and maybe the rest of the board members don't feel the way I do, but I feel that with the money involved, this board never had any attention by Hilltop during that time. Now, I could be wrong. If I am wrong, somebody please correct me.
So Mr. Robert has been here, I believe, 3 times in the last year presenting information on.
I'm talking 15.
And in 15 as well. So they were here in the same process. They were here to talk about financial capacity before the board authorized the election. They were here after the election occurred to talk about the first debt issuance and the first tranche. They came back and reported on the success of that sale. They came back again before we sold in January of 17 to discuss capacity at that time, and they reported on that sale in January 17.
I'm not questioning the ability and the quality of work that this gentleman does. The only thing that I bring up to the table is, are we being open, are we being fair with those others that are competing?
Well,
That's my point.
I think that's a different process than this one.
Well, but, and I understand what you're telling me, but I guess in the fact that we're not experts in this area, you look at things for what you see, and I think perceptionally you say, well, wait a minute, they're doing it again? Well, there is a financial advisor. But then you look at the other participants, and I was just curious to see how much input other people had.
So the underwriting syndicate was primarily selected by the superintendent and I based on prior results and based on
So
statewide.
it's actually you and the superintendent?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Sleeper,
Yes, sir.
could we request to be in part of that as just to be involved in the selection of this?
Absolutely. I'm sure the
I think
superintendent.
it would provide us more transparency as far as the board is concerned, like Mr. Rosales brought up, that we need to be, informed as how these elections happen, everything else. I think it's just, like he says, we just want to make it fair to everybody. And if there's a process there, we want to understand it. We want to know how the selection works. As far as their ability, that's way beyond my ability but that's why we rely on you. But I think we just need to be more involved and be informed as some of the selection process happens.
Certainly, and I know Dr. De La Torre would agree. May I ask Mr. Robert a question?
Sure.
So are these specified in the parameters order?
They are not, no, ma'am.
So I
believe
don't need to amend this prior to the board's action on Wednesday night?
No, ma'am, I don't believe so. I do believe that within the parameter that it gives the administration the ability to select underwriters, but it does not put the specific underwriters in the order itself, and I'll confirm that with the bond attorney.
And can you tell me by approximately what date we need to finalize it if the board wants input? Because I'm thinking it would be better for you to amend on Wednesday evening. If you're going to make a decision as the board to change the underwriting syndicate, I think you would need to do that collectively as the group. And in order to do it before the January issuance, I think that would.
I think if we did that, that would kind of put our financial situation at risk because of the way the market is right now, and it's very favorable.
So I don't think it would.
You don't think so?
That's not going to affect the conditions of issuance. So as Mr. Robert is explaining on the parameter conditions on page 7, these are the conditions under which we may issue the debt in January. And so essentially, we can't exceed $275 million. If the true interest cost were to exceed 4.5, administration doesn't have the authority to continue with the sale. The maturity can't exceed 2052, and then this order expires in 180 days. And so these are the conditions you're voting on Wednesday. Ms. Austin and Mr. Safi are going to have to tell us if there's anything we need to do with regard to the underwriting syndicate and having the board take some sort of action on Wednesday. It's not posted that way, so I don't know if this is merely, I don't know how the board is going to select an underwriting syndicate.
Well, I think the more, an equally important question is, how can the board reach any kind of consensus without another posted meeting between Wednesday and January, when you want to already have those underwriters in place? So I think you all can separately give input to Dr. De La Torre and Ms. Leeper, if you know any names you want them to look into, but I don't think the board can convene and reach a consensus without some sort of a posting to that regard and some way for us to have a bona fide open meeting.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think for this particular matter that Mr. Rosales brought up was that, yes, this is dealing with that, but overall, I think he brought up a good fact, that we, the board, should be informed when all this, the process.
I understand.
It should be part of our steps that we take, and, yes, sir.
That's, I guess, my point, is that we're involved with a lot of money. And my experience with CAD and how this money is generated from this community, I'm very sensitive with the fact that we live in a community that doesn't have a whole bunch of money. So as we look at everything, we want to do the best we can and be fair with all that want to participate. And for those that don't want to participate, well, that's a different matter. But you bring this to us today, but ultimately what you're saying, if we delay it, then we put ourselves in some form of jeopardy in terms of possibly the interest rates. Currently, interest rates are 2.77. The max here is 4.5. So there'd be quite a jump. And the way things are going, I can't say what the future will look, but to me, it does not appear like there's going to be a big jump in interest rates. But that's me. I'm very sensitive to this, the fact that we need to be fair with people, whether they live here, whether they're in Austin, wherever it might be. I just want to have this thing open, if at all possible. But apparently, the way it's all worked out, there's very little flexibility.
So, Mr. Rosales, perhaps what we can do is, since there's some anxiety about not moving forward with this process, and I would agree at where we are with the stage of this particular order, it's better to move forward. But on the second sale, we can involve the board more actively in the selection of the underwriting syndicate, and maybe that would address your concerns about the transparency and the board's involvement with that process.
Ms. Lieber, I just had a quick question. The ones that you do currently have, any of them work on the 2015 bond?
Yes, in
And
fact.
did we have any issues with the ones that actually have been selected here?
No, we did not.
Okay.
They performed very well, as evidenced by the value or the sales and the rates and the true interest cost that we achieved.
Can you tell me how many of those 6 were involved in the 2015 bond?
5.
5? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Soltero?
Ms. Liebert, just a couple of questions. On the senior manager role, Harper Jaffrey's done 2, 3 of the last sales?
They have
Has
been
been
the
senior manager
senior
for that?
manager on our last 3 sales, yes, sir.
Okay. And the percentage that's allocated to them here, is that based on their performance? Is that based on how much you give them because of the fact that they're taking the role of senior manager and they're working with the other folks? How do you come to that
Mr. Roberts
decision?
probably liability to them, and I'll let Mr. Robert.
Right, in any transaction with multiple underwriters, you do have a senior manager, and then the remainder are considered co-managers. In all instances, the senior manager typically takes on the biggest liability. I mean, they're the ones that are running the book, and then in the instance, let's say for instance, that we go out to market and there's bonds that are unsold, they would then step up and purchase unsold bonds for their own account. So I mean, normally anytime, like I said, you see a multiple underwriter syndicate, that there's the senior manager is going to take on the largest percentage of the liability.
And I understand that,
Yes,
because I've heard that discussion before, but how often does that actually happen?
You know, in a very good market, typically they'll sell the majority of it. If for whatever reason, let's say we were to sell and the stock market was up several hundred points, I mean, then you might see that there be, you know, a balance that's underwritten. So I mean, like for instance, on this one, I would suspect there will be some balances underwritten by the senior manager and a percentage by the syndicate as well, but it hopefully will be small, meaning that they did find ultimate buyers. But it's just kind of dependent upon the prevailing market, you know, the day that you price.
And I understand that, but it was also my understanding that because of people like Ms. Leeper and you all as well, that YISD's got a very good reputation in the market.
Yes,
that you know, we're minimal risk. I mean, as much risk as an ISD can be. You know, I don't know. I'm wondering. I realize that sits in the background, but I'm wondering if it's a real issue or not. So that's the first thing. The second thing, Ms. Leeper, was on the 180 days. If we were planning to do this in January, at least the 275, Why 180 days? That seems, is that, because you don't play cards, is that what it is? Or
Well,
what?
so we don't want it to be an unlimited authority to go on forever and ever, but also, I don't know what the market's going to do. We make conservative estimates, we model, but we can't say what will truly happen in January. And I have been a part of a sale that we anticipated, I think, in 2011, was that, or 8? I can't
that
remember
the
now,
ci- the
City Hall
city?
and
Yeah.
those bonds, and the market interest rates went crazy. And we actually delayed selling then, thinking that they would be more favorable towards the end of the parameters order, and they were not. They were drastically higher, and it was a huge penalty to the city. So this 180 days gives us time to act within, any time within that 180 days. So if some event occurs in January that causes rates to spike, something happens with China, something happens that causes the market to do something odd, we can pull it and say we're not selling today, and we can wait 2 weeks, or we can wait 108, 178 days before we actually move forward with that sale.
So on Wednesday, we're actually voting on the parameters. Is that true?
Yes, sir. You're voting to approve the parameters order authorizing the superintendent and I to move forward with the sale in
Okay.
January.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Let's see. Okay, are there any questions for the internal auditor?
Good
Hello.
evening, everyone.
Where's her package? She doesn't have. Internal.
Okay.
Well,
What happened to it? Did we lose her? Can-
Are you all okay with the electronic files? The audit report, now it's only electronic? They are also available on the SharePoint as well. In case if the email, you get too many emails, you can still go to the SharePoint and all the files are there as well.
can you give me recollection? I was reading it, and what was the audit? The first page of your audit was on Miss.
This month
Yeah,
or this week?
Yes.
This way we issue the elementary school associate superintendent's office. That was Mrs. O'Neill's exit audit.
Yeah, that's right, Miss O'Neill. And I didn't see anything really that stood out. I think everything was pretty well covered, and there wasn't any outstanding. I mean, there was one computer that was misplaced. Not was misplaced, it was in some other area, and other than that, and I thought that that was one of the better reports that I've seen in a while, that everything was placed and accounted for like it should have been.
Thank you.
So that's speaks highly of Miss O'Neill, because she always was very thorough about handling all of her assets or whatever she dealt with. So
And her
I just wanted to say
principals,
that.
yeah. And her principals are well.
yes, of course, the principals, they are a main integral to having all this done and set right, so we don't have any discrepancies. But other than that, I saw everything else was okay with me. I don't have any questions. Do you have questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will take 2 non-duty days to visit my family. Last day of December and first day when we return.
Well, great.
So I will see you
Great.
in
I hope you have a
January.
good trip.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now read the agenda items as listed in the posted notice of regular meeting of Isleta ISD Board of Trustees for December 11th, 2019, and related and recommended motions with the superintendent and executive cabinet, and receive responses to questions and/or requests for additional information through the superintendent in preparation for deliberation and action at the December 11th, 2019 regular Board of Trustee meeting. The board will now deliberate on the following matters. The consent items, Board of Trustees. Anything on the consent items?
I have a question about number 3. Do you want to wait till we get there?
Well, let's see. Let's go ahead and then go down to the Board of Trustees Workshop Canvas and regular meeting, November 13, 2019 at 6 p.m. Item number 2, the monthly financial update for October 2019. Okay. Item number 3, 2020-2021 instructional calendar. Ms.
So this is my question. This year, as well as next year, it looks like, for the Christmas, when we start dismissing for Christmas, they have a half day on, the teachers do half day and the students do half day, but then the students are dismissed and they're having professional development. Is that correct?
So, yes, you're correct. It is a half day for students, a full day for teachers. And really that day was intended, our DIC really asked for it, more our secondary teachers, because that's the day that they get to finish inputting all their grades and everything in order to be UIL eligible, because of eligibility plays a big part. So in the elementary world, we also give them time to finish report cards, grades, team building. A lot of them will be doing different team building activities with them based on the holiday theme, but you are correct. And that was really at a request from our teachers at DIC, because it's gives them time to finish grading. I can think of one English teacher in mind that asked, can we give time, because everything has to be in because of eligibility kicks in for UIL purposes. So it's our second year doing that in a row. Last year we did it, and this is the second year based from a DEIC request.
I guess I was so excited for Christmas myself last year, I didn't notice it.
Yes, it's not the
I
first
just thought to myself that it seems like that would be a hard day to do like professional development activities.
So it is a professional development because we do apply for a waiver, but again, the professional development varies. It's time for them to work on their grades, time to grade, time to have team building. Most of the elementaries will do different team building activities. I can't think of other things at the high schools, but that's kind of what they use it for, I believe. I'll ask Ms. Menchaca, but she can elaborate on that.
At the high schools, we like to give them time to close up their semester grades. During this time, we also start looking at ranking systems, and so it's important that we have as much completed as possible. So they will be working on finalizing grades. Counselors will take the time to do what they need to do to close up the semester.
And it's working. That's my main question. This works because
It does. It's our second year, and we always take the calendar to the DIC. We always ask them for their feedback. Yes, again, that was a request. I can think of the English teacher in mind in specific, because they have to grade all those English, final exams. And so it does give them time. And it also is a day, it's kind of like Halloween, right? So they always want Halloween to be a half day. Now, this year it doesn't fall during the week, but if it does, they kind of say the kids are already kind of not really into the day. So that's why
then I wonder about, okay, and I guess this would happen no matter what, but kids half days just before Christmas sounds like just saying, okay, well, why would I bother to come to school? That's just
so I don't have the exact data for you on those 2 days. However, you would think, but they love it. They have all sorts of fun activities at the school. So that's probably the most attended day. Just
Really?
kidding. No. But they do enjoy coming. I know. I'll check the data for you, but they do like coming for the breakfast. I mean, a lot of them have breakfast with Santa. They have a secret. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on, especially at the elementary schools that the kids really look for. They come in their PJs. They have ugly sweater parties. I mean, there's all sorts of things happening now.
Okay.
But I will check
was
the
just-
data
I
and
was
I will
just
send it to you.
curious how that works out,
That's a great
because
question.
to me,
I'll ask and I'll send it to you.
It seems kind of like it could be a day where a lot of kids would just say, I stay home.
Yeah.
And teachers might be a little disgruntled. Just
Yeah,
my thought.
and you can with like Halloween, the same thing. Actually, it's a good attended day. A lot of kids come. You know, they look forward to the fun activities. It's probably the one day the semester that we do allow them to do something different than, you know, curriculum stuff. But they do enjoy making gingerbread houses, different activities. The most of the schools have attendance raffles, gifts. A lot of things happen on that last day.
Just asking. Thank
Okay,
you
but
very
I'll
much.
check the data for you to double
Thank
check.
you.
On that note, I think it's important to close out and have the time to close out and put your grades in before going on the Christmas vacation as a teacher. I think as long as they're allowed to do that.
No, they are.
Okay. As long as they're not required to go. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they do. I think so, at the high school. Yes, okay.
All right. Any other questions on that? All right, item number 4, TEA attendance waiver application. Item number 5, approval of award of YISD contract number 202-00085 with the County of El Paso. Okay, now we go on
Sorry,
to,
Mr.
yes, I'm sorry. I didn't see you.
No, I'm sorry, I was thinking about what to say here.
Okay.
Ms. Leeper, you knew it was coming to her. Ms. Leeper, myself and Mr. Rosales, Ms. Woodruff, and we had met, or have been asked to meet with the union associations, the trades, I'm sorry, with the trades. And one of the big things they had talked about was, the prevailing wage and how we go about selecting it, but also too about the apprenticeship program. Is that part of this discussion, or is that a separate discussion?
That will be a separate discussion, and we are reviewing. We're going to analyze it, look at what other entities near us are doing, and then we will bring something back to you for recommendation. But this is strictly related to the survey necessary under law to create either a new prevailing wage chart or to adopt the Davis-Bacon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Soltero. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to the action items. Item number 1, 9 Degrees Architect and Design Incorporated Design Contract Amendment, BP 1902A and BP 1902B. Item number 2, ASA Architects Incorporated, Design Contract Amendment BP 1901A and BP 1901B. Okay. Item number 3, GA Architect Incorporated, Design Contract Amendment BP 1909A and BP 1909B. Item number 4, approval of award of YISD solicitation number bond 2019-RFP-01, BP 1904 Bel Air High School addition and renovations. Number 5, approval of award YISD contract 202-00093, BP 1906, new elementary schools, Scottsdale, Cedar Grove, and Dolphin Terrace. Item number 6, ratification of award YISD contract number 202-00082 with L&L Special Systems, LLC. Item number 7, order authorizing sale and issuance of unlimited tax school building bonds, Series 2020 and related resolutions. Item number 8, delegation of authority to superintendent to approve award of engineering design services for BP 1902, multipurpose turfs, and high school baseball and softball fields. Number 9, cooperative requisition for 2019 bond athletic enhancements. Okay. For a closed executive meeting, number 1, discussion with legal counsel regarding the status of litigation and options for resolution in Guzman versus YSD, cause number 2017 DCV 1412. Number 2, consultation with legal counsel regarding Public Utility Commission of Texas, PUC, proceedings related to the sale, transfer, or merger of El Paso Electric Company to Sun Jupiter Holdings, LLC, and IIF US Holdings. Number 2, LP, entities related to JP Morgan's Infrastructure Investments Fund, PUC docket number 49849. Number 3, discuss proposed sale of Robert F. Kennedy Pre-K real property at 9009 Alameda Avenue. Action after closed session. Number 1, consider and take possible action regarding options for resolution of litigation in Guzman versus YSD, cause number 2017 DCV 1412. Number 2, discussion and possible action regarding Public Utility Commission of Texas, PUC, proceeding related to the sale, transfer, or merger of El Paso Electric Company to Sun Jupiter Holdings, LLC, and IIF US Holding, 2 LP, entities related to JP Morgan's Infrastructure Investments Fund, PUC docket number 49849. Number 3, discuss and take possible action regarding proposed sale of Robert F. Kennedy Pre-K and real property at 9009 Alameda Avenue. Adjourn? So moved. Adjourn.